Councilor Lindell. Councilor Lindell, please report for duty. Let's bring the meeting to order, please. We have Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Villarreal, salute to the New Mexico flag led by Councilor Cassett Sanchez, and the invocation led by Councilor Garcia. Please stand, and if you can, silence your phones. Thank you.
I want to thank God for bringing us together this evening to carry out our task of being good stewards of government. Let us work together, hand in hand, and in a collaborative manner to continue to strengthen our city government and our great city. A government that supports all Santa Feans. Please remember to be kind, be safe, and as well, please remember to wash your hands. In honor of International Women's Day, which is this past Sunday, I'd like to recite a poem from the late, great Maya Angelou. It's titled, Equality. You declare you see me dimly, though a glass which will not shine, though I stand before you boldly, trim in rank and marking time. You do own to hear me faintly, as a whisper out of range, while my drums beat out the message, and the rhythms never change. Equality, and I will be free. Equality, and I will be free. You announce my ways are wanton, that I fly from man to man, but if I'm just a shadow to you, could you ever understand? We have lived in a painful history, we know the shameful past, but I keep on marching forward, and you keep on coming last. Equality, and I will be free. Equality, and I will be free. Take the blinders from your vision, take the padding from your ears, and confess you've heard me crying, and admit you've seen my tears. Hear the tempo so compelling, hear the blood throb in my veins. Yes, my drums are beating nightly, and the rhythms never change. Equality, and I will be free. Equality, and I will be free. Does anybody have any remembrances or words? Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor. I would like to express condolences to the family of Suzanne Brandt. Suzanne was from our realtor community. She grew up in Santa Fe, went to, I believe, St. Mike's, and is from a business family in Santa Fe. One of our parks is named after, I believe it was her father, but she was a wonderful realtor, a wonderful person, and I know all of us will miss her. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mayor Weber,
Present.
Councilor Beta,
Here.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez, here. Councilor Garcia, Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera,
Here.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Here.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Here.
Councilor Villarreal.
Present.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Are there items to be removed from the consent calendar? D as in David? Others? If not, can we get a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Could you call the roll, please?
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera, Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We have minutes from the regular city council session of February 26, 2020. Are there amendments or changes to those minutes that need to be adjusted? And if not, can we approve those minutes?
To approve?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Rivera, you have some good work to do.
Thank you, Mayor. If we can have the entire governing body down there, 8 certificates, we can all read a name. And then if we can have Abby Smith, Johnny Romero, Annette Escudero, Danny Zimpelman, Victoria Cross-Penner, House Porter, Marosa Junifer Udrian, and Jamie Garcia. If you're here, if you can all come down. Your families are welcome to join you as well. So. Being in EMS most of my career, most of my adult life, it's glad to see that you are here as a team because that's what it takes when something like this happens, is really teamwork. And we're so proud of you guys giving this gentleman the opportunity, a chance to potentially come out of this. I'm not sure where he's at, but you guys gave him that opportunity. And it's easy to play armchair quarterback. I know that with emergencies. There's no guide, there's no rule book that says these are how these things happen, and it's always going to be that way. So we're very proud of you and proud of the teamwork that you guys have all done. So congratulations to you. As I read this, when I get to the names, we'll pass this down. Let everybody say a name. How's that? Okay. Muchísimas gracias from the City of Santa Fe and Mayor Alan Weber. This certificate is presented to Abby Smith,
Jamie Garcia.
Victoria Cross-Penner.
Annette Escudero.
Johnny Romero.
House Porter.
Danny Zimpelman.
Marosa Junifer, is that correct? Juniper? Okay. Gudrian.
on behalf of the entire City of Santa Fe, thank you for your bravery, professionalism, and responsiveness on Monday, February 17th, 2020, which resulted in saving the life of one of our Genoveva's Community Center patrons. Your commitment to the overall safety and well-being of our patrons represents the highest level of service. I commend you on a job well done. Signed the 11th day of March by Mayor Alan Weber.
My friend here helped. Thank you all.
Congratulations to all of you. Do any of the councilors wish to say anything?
Your award.
I'm lucky in the sense I know who mine is. Mine's my cousin.
Oh, well,
So-
welcome to Santa Fe.
Exactly. But congratulations to y'all. Job well done, and you guys just continue to make Santa Fe proud, so thank you.
I'd actually like to hear what each of you do at Genoveva, so we can get a better idea if you're okay with each saying what you do, and maybe even how you were involved with the situation. If you're okay with that, instead of us talking, we talk all the time. So thank you.
My name is Danny Zimpelman. I'm an aquatic technician for the city of Santa Fe, so I do all the water chemistry and fixing the pumps for all the pools citywide. I've been with the city of Santa Fe for 18 years now, which is more than half my life. And I want to thank you guys, the city of Santa Fe, for giving us all the skills that we needed to perform what we did that day. I'm really grateful for that you guys have, I guess, blessed us with that. I'd also like to say thank you for the fire department, because we've had the opportunity recently to start training with them. And the reality of the situation is, with emergencies like this, we are going to meet each other, because that is how the EAP goes, is sort of the Genoveva Chavez Community Center. So that's a really wonderful thing that we've started doing at the Genoveva Chavez Community Center. I'd also like to say that, in part from a fire station and a hospital, through my career, I feel that the Genoveva Chavez Community Center is the safest place to have a medical emergency, due to our high level of skill and training that we take very seriously over there, and we practice every month. And we also spread the knowledge through the community with CPR courses, lifeguarding classes, and so forth. So thank you guys very much for providing us with all the skills to make this happen, and we know how to use them, and we're thankful for that.
My name is Abby Smith. I'm the acting natatorium manager, and on behalf of all of us, I'd like to say thank you very much for recognizing myself and my team, and I couldn't be more proud of them and for their excellent delivery of their training, and everything that they did that day was spot on. And thank you to all of you guys and your families for being here.
My name is Victoria Cross-Penner. I am a recreation supervisor at the Chavez Center. I've been with the city for about 12 years. I would just like to thank the team up here for doing what we did that day. It was good teamwork, and thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Johnny Romero, and I just want to thank everybody that works here with me. I couldn't have done it by myself. We have a great team that we work with. I have confidence in them. If anything goes wrong, we're ready to respond, not only at the swimming pool, but in the whole parks and recreation area. Wherever we're at, we have to respond. So we're always ready to go. And I just want to thank everybody for having us here, and appreciation. God bless everybody, and Paul's family as well, too.
Hi, my name is Jamie Garcia. I am a water safety instructor with the City of Santa Fe. I have been with the city for also about half my life. I grew up working with the city. I am so grateful for the team that I work with and for working with the city. It's been a great place to definitely grow up. This is the first incident in my 15 years of working with the city that I've ever had to deal with any type of traumatic event like this. But it's great to have the support and from everybody from our city and our team. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Marosa Juniper Hadrian. I'm a swimming instructor at the Genoveva, and I just think that I have an awesome team. I really appreciate all the hard work and the hands-on that we did that day. It could be traumatic, but we got each other through it, so that's awesome. Thank you guys for the recognition and for the job that I have. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taos Porter. I am also a water safety instructor here at the Genoveva Chavez Center. If it wasn't for my team, we wouldn't have been able to save that man's life. And I'd also like to add, Paul Forrester was a close friend of mine. I saw him last week. He is conscious and is scheduled to do physical therapy in Albuquerque.
Hello, my name is Annette Escudero. I started lifeguarding at Tino Griego. I don't know if anybody, one guy knows what that is. In all those years, whether you believe in God or that all things are connected, it was this team on that day, at that moment, that saved Mr. Forrester's life, as well as EMS and the hospital staff. And we just really thank you for all the encouragement and support that you gave us immediately, because it really helped make a traumatic event a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize EMS as well. Some of them are in the crowd. Let them know that we're proud of them as well. But I know you guys do this a lot more than the Chavez Center staff. So, but we appreciate all the work you do as well. So if you can pass that along. John, do you want to come up and say a few words?
Hi, guys. Thank you, Councilor Rivera. Thank you, Mayor, City Councilors, for recognizing my team. You all did absolutely a wonderful job, and I cannot be more proud of you. Thank you for what you do every day, and thank you for responding quickly to give our patron a good fighting chance. And Taos, thanks for the update. That is so good to hear. Thank you all, and thank you, City Councilors and Mayor.
Was there anyone else from the council that wanted to say anything, or we're ready to move on?
Thank you. Congratulations. All right, congratulations and thank you. Let's move to the one item that was pulled from the consent calendar. And Councilwoman, that is item D. Do you want to, I guess Mr. Randall's at the podium.
So I was concerned because there was a discrepancy in the memo from our staff and the memo from Hutton about which items we were purchasing and which was going to be value added. It looks like we do have an updated memo from Hutton that is rectifying that discrepancy. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, that is correct. I apologize we didn't have it in time to put in your packets, but it clarifies that the purchase price, what we're purchasing is advertising at $20,000 per year plus tax for a total of $80,000 plus tax over a 4-year period. And added as added value, the seller will allow the City of Santa Fe, Tourism Santa Fe, to utilize visitsantafe.com until the end of the 4-year term. Upon completion of the 4-year term of this contract, Hutton Broadcasting will transfer ownership of visitsantafe.com domain to the City of Santa Fe Tourism. Look forward to continued partnership. So thank you for catching that. It does clarify it, and we should be good to go with this. If, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, I could distribute this revised letter to council tomorrow.
I think that'd be appropriate. Please.
Glad to do that.
Other questions?
I don't believe I had any other questions on this topic at this time.
Okay. If that meets with your satisfaction, would you care to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second? Is there a second? Okay.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera, Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Item number 11. Please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here on behalf of the city itself to represent basically that we need to execute a deed in order to correct the real estate record in favor of the state of New Mexico to clarify an issue that's been in place for a number of years regarding ownership of the underlying land in a portion of the 599 bypass highway.
Thank you. Are there questions about this item from members of the governing body?
Second.
Okay, let's have a roll call.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Cassidy Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Thank you. Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now going to be the beneficiaries of an informational briefing. Julie, are you going to lead the way on this?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we're going to have the chair, Emily Kaltenbach.
Emily, are you going to lead the way on this? All right, very good. And we have the finished document. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Kaltenbach. I was honored to be the chair of this task force over the last couple years, and so we're really excited that we're here today to share our findings and our final recommendations with all of you. We are going to be doing a summary presentation, but all of you should have received the final. I know there was a draft copy in your binders. That content is still, so whatever you read will show up in this final, but this just looks prettier and easier to follow. So we may be actually drawing your attention to several pages as we go throughout the presentation. I'm also joined today by Marcela Diaz and Andres Mercado, who are both going to be co-presenting. Both Andres was the vice chair of the task force, and Marcela led our prevention committee. So I think it was just about 6 months ago we were in front of you presenting an update, and it's exciting to see new faces. So I thought I would just give a little bit of background. Some of you have heard this before, but we just want to ground our work in sort of the purpose of what we achieved over the last couple years. So the resolution called for municipal drug strategy. And so what is that? And really what it is about is that cities can take a powerful leadership role when it comes to addressing problematic alcohol and drugs in our community. We've seen this happen with other cities that have taken leadership roles on other issues. Perhaps that's climate change. But we're seeing that cities and other local government can really take a role when they don't see necessarily the federal government stepping up. Cities have an important voice in advocacy, and so we'll go through some of those recommendations. But we believe that really when solutions and interventions are developed at a local level, they are designed listening intently to the community. They'll reflect our community, and the impact will be more acutely felt by our residents. So that was sort of the grounding idea behind this work. This model is not new. We adopted and adapted it from a model that came out of Frankfurt in the 80s and 90s, when a lot of cities felt like their federal government wasn't doing enough, and they felt that their drug policies were actually doing more harm than good, that they were just criminalizing instead of addressing problematic drug and alcohol use as a public health issue, and creating the social supports that individuals need and the compassion that we need to give people who are struggling with these issues. And so 34 cities and across, I think it was 10 countries actually signed on to what they call the Frankfurt Resolution that mapped a way forward for cities. And that's what we're doing here today. Vancouver did something similar. Ithaca was the first city in the U.S. To have a municipal drug strategy project. The mayor, I know, spoke with our mayor. We got the pleasure of having some of those architects out here to share what they learned. And now Santa Fe is the second in the country to do this. And I think we're really going to provide not only a roadmap for our own city, but for other cities. So I'm going to pass it on to Andres to talk a little bit about really what is the impact we're seeing now, and give a little background on the problem our city faces.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and members of the public. So first off, I want to thank Emily and all the members of the committee, and I think that after witnessing the dedication and the executive and organizational skills, I think if this group stays involved, I'm pretty hopeful that this will result in some pretty positive changes for safety and health in Santa Fe. I'm really impressed by the group and the participation. So as many of you have heard me say before, the sort of traditional understanding of what fire and law enforcement do is a little outdated. The tasks that firefighters and cops have been asked to handle have really shifted under our feet over the last few decades. And at the national level, Santa Fe is definitely not alone on this. At a national level, the organizations and the processes within those organizations have failed to keep up. And instead of dwelling on all the negative aspects, there's really just a bunch of opportunity for us to take advantage of some of those gaps in service, where by partnering with really a cross-section of the community, we can achieve some great results. The presentation to the Genoa Chavez Center staff just before this is testament to what a community working together can do to really improve those outcomes. So just to speak a little bit about the substance use and mental health issues in Santa Fe and how those are reflected from at least the vantage point of the fire department. We have a lot of dispatch complaints, but if you, just a really preliminary review of the data shows that behavioral health, so that's substance abuse and mental health, are perhaps the primary driver of demand for 911 services in Santa Fe. It's an opportunity, but there's also a challenge. There are a lot of operational challenges. How do you deploy resources that are designed for life-threatening emergencies, such as someone in cardiac arrest at the bottom of a swimming pool? How do you manage that with also being able to respond to things that require a different set of skills? So it's an exciting time to be in public safety. I think Santa Fe it's different from the cities in the East Coast that have been ravaged by the opiate crisis, where it was a sudden spike. We've had a slow burn in opiate issues in New Mexico, northern New Mexico, for generations. As you'll hear from some of the recommendations, the opiate issues are only one subset of those issues, and again, what we see on the fire department on a day-to-day basis is that having a coordinated municipal approach to these sorts of issues can really help improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of this type of programming and these types of policy changes. So I have some more information specific to the public safety section, but I just want to reiterate just how important this is, how many resources the city is currently dedicating to dealing with mental health, substance abuse, and then the penumbra of issues and challenges that go with that, criminalization and incarceration, homelessness, and soaring healthcare costs. The city actually has a pretty big stake in this issue, and the fire department and police department are two tips of those spheres. I think community services is obviously in a position where they also deal with these issues quite a bit. But at the local level, oftentimes there are plans that come down, and we try to model what other cities are doing. I just want to reiterate that the conversations that I heard as part of this process rang true with our day-to-day experience. This is very much a local need, and I think that Santa Fe has a really unique opportunity to be on the forefront. I think there's some innovative things being done in isolation in different communities, but I think bringing this all together under a municipal plan is really smart. So I commend the city and the task force, and hope that you find this report interesting and insightful, and allows you to have some information for decision making going forward. Thank you.
And just drawing your attention, at some point you can look at pages 8 and 9 in the report, which actually shows the impact, the data in Santa Fe County. Not surprisingly, alcohol use disorder leads in the number of individuals that are living with a substance use disorder. But we also know that there are polysubstances, right? So a lot of these people are also using other drugs. And this was actually data that just came out from the Department of Health, where they looked at treatment gaps. And sadly, in Santa Fe County, 49%, so close to 50% of individuals are not receiving treatment that they need. And so there's a reference to that report if you're interested. And then also on the next page, you just look that Santa Fe County really does track with what we're seeing at a statewide level, and often exceed what's happening in the U.S. I also just want to point out that mental health issues, co-occurring issues with substance use is very prevalent. So when you look at adults who frequently have mental distress, that's reporting the last 30 days, and that's 12% of Santa Fe County, and youth. This was just really staggering that close to 40% of youth are feeling sadness or hopelessness. This is 9th through 12th grade within the last year. And that is higher than at a state level and at a national level. So a lot of the drivers are around poverty and behavioral health issues when it comes to substance use. So just really quickly, I'm not going to go through the resolution, but we did pass it in 2017, and then our work started in 2018 when the mayor created the task force. We had an incredible task force, and there are members here who, if you wouldn't mind just standing up so people could see, not everyone is here, and I'm not going to call everyone out by name, but I just want to add that I've never been part of a group like this, that they kept showing up, for 2 years, almost 2 years, giving their time voluntarily. So thank you so much for your work. Really cut across from health professionals to social justice advocates, to people who are most impacted, legal experts, law enforcement. We had a real great group. And we split our work into different work around prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and emergency response. But we also really wanted to make sure that our work was rooted in some guiding principles before we even started. From promoting compassion to prioritizing health over criminalization, to promote harm reduction, to respect the dignity of people who are using, to break the chain of that cycle back into the criminal justice system, really reduce the consequences to families, because we know that that's really how many children are impacted from this. But we want to highlight one really important guiding principle, and that was listening intently to the community and community consultation to help drive our final recommendation. So I just asked Marcella to talk a little bit about that, because she really was the first to engage with our community in this project, and was really critical in making sure we listened, and that guided what we ended up with.
Thanks, everyone. Mayor, councilors. My name is Marcela Diaz. I work with Somos Un Pueblo Unido. We're a statewide immigrant-based worker and civil rights organization, and we do a lot of work with task forces, not just in Santa Fe and with our cities and our counties, but really around the state to help bring to the fore some of the issues with vulnerable communities, low-wage workers, and of course immigrants. And so I want to point you to our slide on some of the community conversations that we had. We were able to talk to about 234 people who participated through community conversations that were like focus groups, that a range of partners and practitioners in our community were able to put together, and we did this for over the course of about 10 months, is that right? And so we were really able to get some good information, and as Emily said, we really wanted to seat the work that we were doing, the way that we were thinking about remedies, solutions, prevention, harm reduction in the lived experiences of people in our community, and not just folks in our community, but clinicians, public safety personnel, and so many others. And so we had about 13 focus groups or community conversations in all, with about 180 people, ranging, these were family members, young people, immigrants, LGBTQ individuals, Native American communities, folks who've experienced recently and years past incarceration and homelessness, as well as people currently experiencing homelessness. Stakeholders in our community that participated both in community conversations as well as in one-on-one meetings with people on our task force, and also law enforcement who participated in 42 law enforcement officials, public safety officials participated in a survey that we also incorporated into our study and our findings and our work. Some of the sample of findings, and you can obviously read these in your reports, were really just, some were not surprising, some were surprising, and it just shows that we have a lot of work to do in our community. And I just wanted to highlight some of the things that really stood out in some of these community conversations. And one, I think, overarching theme was this idea or this notion of stigma in our communities that is so hard, not just in Santa Fe, but really around the country to overcome. And it impacts the ability of community members who are experiencing this to seek the help that they need, or for family members to seek the help that they need. And so we really thought about that a lot as we developed recommendations in all areas of the study. There economic insecurity, racism, poor working conditions, obviously housing conditions were things that people talked about, both stakeholders as well as community members. And so that was something that we would really like to highlight. A lack of mental health, untreated mental health, lack of mental health services and untreated mental health issues in our communities was another thing that people really focused on in the community conversations. And of course, lack of culturally and linguistically appropriate prevention programs, services across the board, and these are some things that you will see addressed in some of our recommendations. There are some disconnects with particularly poor people of color in our communities, sometimes feeling targeted, over-policed in certain areas, and just a perceived notion of feeling targeted, not just in our community, but really nationally, and certainly immigrants feel targeted, not by our local public safety officials, but by our federal ones, and all of these are leading to some of these issues and lack of ability to actually access the services they need. And likewise, a lot of our law enforcement personnel feel concerned that we just don't have enough capacity in public safety departments here, to the staffing shortages, turnover, and just a lot of different challenges in dealing with some of these issues. So these are some of the things that we really tried to again think about as we were developing recommendations, and really trying to think through what are some evidence-based approaches to actually dealing with some of these in our community. So please look through all of the different findings that we saw in these community conversations. And do I go next, or do you go next?
Back and forth here. We also did a poll very early on. This was 2 years ago, but I would assume that if we did it today, we'd see similar results, that voters in Santa Fe universally agreed that current policies weren't working. That, that's not to say city policies per se, but federal, state policies, and we should shift resources from arrest and imprisonment towards treatment and rehabilitation. So I just wanted to flag that. We're going to briefly talk about the framework, and then we're going to talk just give you a brief synopsis of the recommendations, because that's really the heart of it. We categorize the recommendations. You'll see that this starts on page 13, I believe, 12, 13, and then the actual recommendations start on 14. But we categorize them by leadership, governance, and accountability, economic security and community development, prevention and education, recovery-oriented treatment and harm reduction, public safety and human rights, and advocacy. And so to make it a little bit more digestible, because there are a lot of recommendations, but we really wanted to make sure that that this is really a comprehensive plan. So within each one of those categories, you'll see that they're listed by immediate, short-term, and longer term. That doesn't mean that the immediate are more important. What it means is something that you can actually get done in less than a year, between 6 and 12 months. Short-term, a year to 2 years, and longer-term, a year to 3 years. So what's really important is that a lot of the immediate recommendations that we'll be walking through are foundational to some of those longer-term ones. So, so I just want to make sure that we don't lose the short-term and long-term and just focus on the immediate. So the first category, the governance, leadership, and accountability category, we are recommending that actually a position is created within city government with a specific focus on alcohol and drug use, drug user health, treatment and social supports, and harm reduction. That doesn't mean that the city should go out and create all these new direct services. The idea is that having a point person who can actually coordinate efforts across governments, who can coordinate efforts across city departments, who can go out and listen to the community, bring those ideas back, and do research. And actually, this person would be responsible for implementing this plan, because too often we see these plans developed in recommendations, but there isn't the capacity or resources to actually do it effectively. So I just want to flag that this is probably the most foundational, because it actually means that the work can move forward. Passing it off to Marcella for the next two.
So in our economic security and community development recommendations, we have both short-term and medium-term recommendations that are not on your slides, but we in doing this, it was clear that, economic security and healthy workforce, and a healthy workforce in Santa Fe are key factors in prevention and in preventing problematic substance use. Participants in our conversations indicated that low and unstable wages, long working hours, unsafe working conditions, high housing costs, lack of paid sick leave, something that we're hearing a lot about right now, given the current pandemic that our world is experiencing, lack of affordable health and care and child care that weaken family and community cohesiveness, that all of these things often lead to risky behaviors and prevent access to much needed services, including substance use disorder treatment. And so numerous individuals that are impacted by problematic substance use shared stories during their interviews or during the conversations about the impact of poverty, the lack of housing, food, transportation, and how that impacts their recovery and their decision making. And so we know that communities that are affected by high rates of drug and alcohol use need equal access to community and economic development opportunities and services. And so we came up with a broad range of really, I think, key recommendations to think about this in a holistic way. But some of the ones that can be done right away are what you see on your screen, that to research and reduce barriers to harm reduction, housing, by working with community providers to implement housing that provides a safe place for individuals to use, and that we seek more funding to expand the Better Way project to specifically work with individuals in early recovery. Harm reduction housing is an approach that focuses on finding and sustaining housing for people who are experiencing homelessness and who are actively using drugs and alcohol. And services offered in a harm reduction housing model are included for many challenges associated with homelessness and drug and alcohol use, such as counseling, financial skills training, and treatment. Research of harm reduction-based housing projects in Canada, the United States, and the UK found that this approach is an effective way to address the needs of homeless individuals who are using substances, including alcohol. And a little bit more on the Better Way project. It's a city-subsidized program that you are probably aware of, where a van picks up workers to do work on city-owned properties for the day and pays them. And we know that employment certainly is a protective factor that mitigates the risks of problematic substance use. And so that's why we're recommending some of this in the immediately doing some of this. And you'll see that the city's role includes research and planning and collaboration with a lot of the organizations and nonprofits that are doing this work, as well as providing additional funding. Some of the other sort of broader economic security and community development recommendations include strengthening the economic security of low-income families in Santa Fe by improving wages and working conditions. That means health and safety in our workplaces in Santa Fe. That means guaranteeing sick leave for workers in Santa Fe, and really trying to figure out where our wages are at in comparison to other cities with our cost of living. And of course, ensuring adequate funding for short and long-term, deeply affordable housing for low-income and low-wage earners in our city. And so those are some of the examples of the short-term and medium-term policy ideas or policy changes that could be made by your body in the future. And so, do you want me to go on? Oh no, I don't mind doing this one. So another recommendation in the prevention and education category is assisting, and this is in the immediate term, assisting in funding the evaluation of the Santa Fe Public School District's implementation of Safety First. It's a science-based and compassionate drug education curriculum for 9th and 10th graders that also helps eliminate stigma. And so that was something that we really were drawn to We repeatedly heard from community members, law enforcement, and other stakeholders that it is essential to support young families and children and youth as early as possible to address the root contributing factors of problematic substance use, in addition to addressing the social determinants of health through community and economic development. Effective drug prevention programming should be supported and expanded, and so this is one of our immediate recommendations. So these are examples. Again, we ask you to look through the report, and you'll see that we have a number of prevention and education recommendations for young people as well as adults throughout our city.
So moving to the treatment and harm reduction category, there are quite a few recommendations here. And obviously, you know, the city isn't the main provider of healthcare services. We recognize that the county has a really significant role. And so a lot of these recommendations are really about how to collaborate with other government. But the first one, which I believe is already in process, which is really exciting, and the county's taking a leadership role, but we think it's really important that the city does as well, is creating these interdisciplinary, peer-informed, collaborative case staffing models. That's a mouthful. But the idea that is, you know, some of our city residents go into the emergency room and then they go get care somewhere else, and you know, it's patchwork. And so the idea is you have a team that actually surrounds and wraps around that person that can create a care plan. And this has been really successful in other communities. Another really, well, it sounds easy, but I have no idea how the bus routes get created, but one idea is around making sure that the bus routes actually go to treatment and social supports so that people have access, because transportation is obviously really key in recovery and in treatment. We know that a lot of individuals don't feel safe in our parks because of needles on the ground, and so taking models from other cities, San Francisco has a great one around a safe needle disposal education campaign, what to do when you find a needle. You know, even in my work, I don't know, you know, do you pick it up? Do you put it in the trash? Who do you call? I mean, really making sure our members, our city residents know what to do, and then actually just having disposal sites so that we don't see them all the time on the ground. And then important around just naloxone, which is a life-saving drug to reverse an overdose. That should be accessible in grocery stores, in our libraries, and other sort of non-traditional settings and high visibly public places that we can actually teach people how to save a life and save those lives. Actually, I was talking with the Meow Wolf staff because we've helped train some of their staff with naloxone, and they shared that they've had to use it during one of their shows. So thinking about where are those settings where staff should be trained and where naloxone should be available. And a few others that are longer term is we heard that there's not enough medical detox services in our city. That's really important. So how can we help fund and create those? Treatment on demand, so that when people are ready to get treatment, they can. They aren't put on waiting lists. How do we do that? Maybe there's some mobile treatment options. And the importance of reentry and working with our county for individuals who are leaving jail.
So perhaps the work of this subcommittee in public safety can be summarized by just saying that the mental health substance use issues, they've just become those issues have become too large to ignore, and there's a growing understanding that, again, that there's been this evolutionary change, and law enforcement and EMS models, new law enforcement and EMS models need to be adopted. So recommendation number E1 is to have strategic plans. These are not only important. Managing change is challenging, but I think it's impossible without having a roadmap and having a really clear vision. The subcommittee agreed that the strategic plans would really provide that roadmap and then work as a benchmarking tool to support the other recommendations from the public safety subcommittee. Recommendation E2 was about broadening the formerly known as LEAD, the Thrive program, which is currently, it provides police officers the discretion to divert individuals out of the criminal justice system into case management. Currently, it's limited to opiate use issues, and both command staff at the police department as well as line officers have expressed interest in broadening that to other substances and also mental health. I think that the police, and so because police and fire are already collaborating on this, I think we can really leverage the interdepartmental relationships and communication that we've built. And again, this has been echoed in the training for the line officers. They see a large number of their calls potentially benefiting from a diversion out of the criminal justice system. So they'd like to have more options, and I think that that's great. Traditionally or historically, we've had some issues with volume of referrals into the LEAD program, and I think that listening to the officers is really important, making sure that we're giving them a tool that they think is useful. So I think that broadening that is or the subcommittee thought that it would be helpful, and I completely agree. The last one is essentially a branding campaign, so a new face of public safety. And most people I know would give a very broad description of what the police or fire department do. It's based on traditional fire and police work, but if you do a ride-along with the police or with the fire department, if you listen to the radio for a day, or if you just look at our data briefly, you see that bank robberies and structure fires and rescuing kittens is a really small portion of what we do, and the majority of our time is spent addressing public health issues. So not only is it our job to educate the community, but I think it's really helpful in recruiting and retention. I think it's important to be really upfront with folks to make sure that the organization self-reflects. I think it's really important that the right people are picking up applications. I know that recruiting for the police right now is really challenging, but and I don't want to get too far down the police route, but I think that recruiting and retention is we do a disservice to ourselves if we're unclear on what exactly we're trying to accomplish and who we need in order to do that. So I think it's a duty to the public. But it's also, there's a lot of self-interest in there in making sure that we're recruiting folks that want to sign up for what they're actually going to do and not sign up for something that they thought they were going to do and then have a little bit of an identity crisis. So, Emily?
Promise, we're almost done. There's only one more category. But I do want to also mention in this category, there are two others that I think I need to name. And one is working with the county to ensure that we have medication-assisted treatment for our city residents who are entering in the jail with opioid use disorder and who cannot continue. If they're currently on Suboxone with a doctor's order and a prescription, they have to go off of it when they're incarcerated. These, perhaps they're forging bad checks, and they have an opioid use disorder, and they're arrested, and their treatment plan gets completely disrupted. I can't stress enough. We're just down the road at MDC. They have a methadone program in the jail. So I think this is just critical that the city take a leadership and an advocacy role around that. And also, what was the other one in there? I forgot. So it obviously wasn't as important, but I just wanted to mention that one. The most important one. And so the last group is around just advocacy. What can a city do to advocate at a state or a county level? We think that there's an opportunity if cannabis was legalized and there was local tax revenue, that local tax revenue should go back into substance use disorder treatment, prevention, education, and harm reduction. That seems like a really logical place to reinvest back. That local and state agencies, including law enforcement, corrections institutions, and offices don't inquire about immigrant status. This is so important. I know that Santa Fe takes a great, we pride ourselves in doing really well around this, but we need to make sure that it's even better and that other agencies across the state are doing that, and Marcel is the real expert in that piece. an idea of increasing the alcohol tax. That has to be done at a state level, but can we reinvest those dollars back into our community? 24/7 transportation from the jail for people who are being released. I mean, it's just so sad to read those stories of people who've been killed, walking back into Santa Fe. We need to make sure that our residents are safe when they get released. And the last one is around I love that this process let us think outside the box. This is a treatment modality for chronic opioid use. We're working with the University of New Mexico and creating a pilot. There was an appropriation bill introduced, but this is done in other countries. Nowhere in the U.S. are we doing this type of treatment, and so this is just an example of how we can innovate. So, immediate asks, we'd love to have more community conversations in each of your districts to share this plan, to get feedback, and so I know many of us would like to continue working in an unofficial capacity around this, and so maybe hosting some of those conversations, championing some of these recommendations, whether that's through the budget process, whether that's a resolution, whether you're educating your constituents. We hope that this can come alive, and support the comprehensiveness of this plan, because I can't stress enough that we showed you immediate recommendations, but it's really about the whole package, and so we hope that it can be really implemented as a whole comprehensive process. And so just to end, thank you. I want to thank all the members. 234 constituents stepped up and shared their ideas. It wasn't easy. Sometimes, they were people who were in recovery themselves or who were, living on the street. So I just want to thank them. They were incentivized. We gave them Target gift cards for their time because, we wanted to value their voice and their ideas. Thank you to the mayor and all of the council members for supporting us. Former councilor Mike Harris showed up at a lot of our meetings, so I want to thank him and his personal interest in this issue. And Kira and Julie from Community Services, incredibly supportive and helped us get this done. And so, and Michelle Liss, who was a consultant who helped us write this. So thanks again for your time this evening, and we hope to work with you more on this.
Thank you very much. Very comprehensive. We'll bring it in-house and go to work. Thank you. The city manager is sick, but we have a substitute city manager. I don't know if you were authorized to have any matters that you wanted to bring to our attention tonight.
Mr. Mayor, none I'm aware of. Thank you.
Okay. How about from the city attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body, I'd like to recommend that we go into executive session for 2 reasons under the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically parts H7 and H8 for discussion of attorney-client privilege, threatened and pending litigation to which the city is or may become a participant, but specifically the New Mexico Environment Department versus City of Santa Fe, case number 19-44 from OSHA, and specifically related to the disposition of property, the former College of Santa Fe and Santa Fe University of Art and Design.
Thank you. Councilor Vera, is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we enter an executive session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1H, Subpart 7, for discussion of threatened or pending litigation, and Subpart 8 for discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property or water rights by the governing body.
Is there a second?
Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera, excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
In and out, sorry. Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Beta?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilor Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion.
Very well. We will move into executive session. If we can come back to order. Councilor Rivera, you have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1J, I move that the governing body reconvene in open session and state for the record that the matters discussed in the closed session were limited to those specified in the motion for closure.
Your
Second.
Very good. Call the roll.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Hill Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beita,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Cassett Sanchez, Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is approved.
Thank you. We're back in business. That brings us to item 15 on our agenda for the 5 o'clock session. We'll move on after that. But City Attorney, do you want to say something about this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body, I'd like to request approval on the settlement agreement as proposed during executive session with the Occupational Health Safety Hazard Bureau of the New Mexico Environment Department.
We have a request from the City Attorney to act in that manner. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, could you call the roll?
Yes. Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Hill Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beita,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez, Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
and Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is approved.
Thank you. I would propose if we can do it without too much difficulty, move items 16 and 17 to the end of our activities because we've got people waiting to testify on some hearings. Is that acceptable? And I would say the same thing about appointments because they will not take much time, but we'll do them after we've taken care of the public's business. So with that in mind, we have petitions from the floor. We have matters before us that will be public hearings. If you wish to speak to those, this is not the time to speak. If you have something you want to bring to the governing body's attention that is not a public hearing matter tonight, this is the time to speak. Very good. We'll give you 2 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. Speak from the podium, please. Give us.
Microphone's on. Hello, everybody. How you doing this evening? My name is Martin Witt, and I represent a local company here called AllerPops.com. Let's see a show of hands. Anyone have allergies or asthma? No? No allergy or asthma sufferers? Okay, terrific. This company, developed by Dr. Hahn, he was just recognized by the state of New Mexico for Innovator of the Year. So this is drug-free, allergy-free. You can live naturally without taking, Claritin, Sudafed, and the rest. So this works, and that's why I'm here today. I just wanted to show and share. I have business cards with 40% savings on. There's a coupon code. So if you go to the website, you enter the code. Normally a box of 12 is $39.95. With coupon code, it's a box of 12 for $24.95. So they work, they're sure, they're pure, and they are a cure. So we're curing the cause, we're not treating the symptoms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Stephanie Beninato. I'm not going to put on an ad for my mediation business or my tours.
Oh.
I would like to talk a little bit again, recreation. We have digital displays for ads, but we still don't have bars going from the lockers to the showers for people with mobility issues. We don't have hair dryers, and we have no heat in the locker room. In fact, there was direct cold air coming in on Monday. So that would be nice to get that, heat turned on. Shouldn't be that hard to do that. And again, some of these other things that we've been waiting a year for. In terms of EPA requests, I've been having a very hard time. I was told that, it took me 6 months to get some land use permits. And just the other day, Ms. Roach told me that Of course they were there. Well, if they were there, then why did it take 6 months to produce them instead of the 3 to 15 days that EPRA requires? And also, I wonder about when you're told on a permit you're going to have in-kind renovations, and it applied for a brick and adobe wall, which was a very unusual structure, and it became just adobe with frame because, again, Historic could just go, oh, well, who cares? And I wonder how that really works. And I also wonder how you're really protecting our neighborhoods, because I thought when we had these ADUs, we were really going to have one unit with a main unit. But I know on Barella Street, which is a very narrow street, 212 Barella, there's going to be 3 units, 2 of which are rentals at 500 square feet, and then a much larger main unit that's not going to be inhabited except on occasion. And it's all attached. It looks, they meet all exceptions to do what they're doing. So how's that protecting our neighborhoods? I'm not really sure it does. And I thank you for getting the names of the people on the Midtown campus list and where they lived, and 4 out of 11 do not live in Santa Fe. But I do wonder why legislative liaison and constituent service heads are helping direct that sort of analysis. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard at this time on a matter unrelated to the public hearings before us? If not, we'll skip over the appointments and go directly to item H1 and ask Jesse if you're here. Maybe he's not here. There he is. Jesse, I knew you were there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. I'm sure all of you have read this. It's been at a couple committees. There weren't any questions at those committees, but I just had a brief overview, if that's all right with you, Mayor.
I think that's appropriate.
So there are a lot of components contained in the bill for you, some substantive and others that clarify the intent or meaning of the section. The main changes included in the bill are to remove any form of tethering as a proper manner to restrain an animal at the property of the owner. It adds a section on care and maintenance of dogs, ensuring dogs have constant access to safe, dry, and humane shelter and shade, access to clean water and food, a living area free of garbage, feces, and pests. It adds a section ensuring dogs are not left outdoors in extreme heat or cold. It allows animal services officers to impound an animal that is found to be in imminent danger of harm, provided an attempt to contact the owner of the residence is made prior to entering private property. Important note that this does not allow them to enter a residence. Removes complaints of animal disturbing the peace, also known as barking dogs, from municipal court and makes it a civil violation instead. Codifies the fees and fines associated with Chapter 5 and directs animal services to develop an alternative method of payment for first-time violators who affirm their inability to pay the fees, or the fines rather, and establishes an appeal process before a hearing officer. There are also 3 amendments to this bill. 2 are included in your packet. 1 is on your desk. Amendment A from Councilor Lindell has been withdrawn by the councilors, so you can go ahead and ignore that one, I think. Amendment B from Councilor Lindell establishes an effective date of 120 days after adoption. This is to give the Animal Services Office time to print new citation booklets and train their officers on the new regulations. It also gives the city time to conduct a public outreach campaign about the new regulations before owners are cited for violations of this section. Lastly, Amendment C from Mayor Weber has a few different components to it. First, it strikes the sentence that requires feces to be picked up no less frequently than twice weekly, and amends the following sentence to state that the area should be kept free of feces. So it's rather than being specific about how often it needs to be cleaned up, it just says it needs to be free of feces. Second is a technical correction to a reference. Third, the amendment proposes establishing violations of the neglect sections as criminal convictions. This is different from Amendment A from Councilor Lindell, which made them civil. So Mayor Weber's proposing that neglect violations be criminal convictions. And finally, the last amendment directs Animal Services to develop an alternative payment program for those that receive first-time civil citations and affirm that they don't have the means to pay the fine. This program was established by resolution in 2004, which has the fines that are currently in effect, and so it's being added here as well.
Thank you. Councilor Lindell, I think we'll get you to speak to this, and then we'll open the floor for some public testimony.
Terrific. Thank you, Mayor. Jesse, you covered this well. What I mainly want to do is just comment on a couple of things that this has been brought forward for the betterment of the lives of animals in this town. This town loves animals. The support that I found in bringing this forward was astounding and heartening. We live in a great town with people that deeply, deeply care. And I have the privilege of serving with counselors that deeply, deeply care. They put a lot of work in on this with me. They ask hard questions. They brought good answers. They pitched in on helping on every part of this. The community pitched in a way that is astounding. We raised nearly $6,000 from the public to have available to help people comply with the requirements of this ordinance. That's a pretty amazing thing from this community. I would want to also have a thank you to animal protection voters. Alan Edmonds helped me tremendously in getting this ordinance in an acceptable manner and bringing to it nationally accepted best practices. Anybody that is an animal advocate in the entire state of New Mexico knows Jessica Johnson from Animal Protection. Nobody represents animals better than Jessica does. She had some huge victories at the Roundhouse this year. Congratulations. We're happy for all of us. In legal, Jesse spent a lot of time on this with me. I really appreciate that. Councilor Romero Worth gave me a lot of time on this ordinance. Thank you very, very much. We had a terrific editorial in the New Mexican yesterday. Animal control folks and the police, we worked together. We got this in a form that we can all live with and work on, and enforcement's always the deal that it comes down to. Folks at the animal shelter were extremely helpful to us on this. So what I mostly have to say, Mayor, is thank you. Thank you to the community that we live in, and for the love of dogs, for the love of animals. We're a community that is deeply pained when we see cruelty and neglect to our four-legged friends. I'm also glad that I was able to get a new sweater for tonight's ordinance. Yeah, I want everybody to see I got the quintessential dog sweater, and I'm happy to announce that my partner Maria and I do have a new dog on the way. We lost our dog recently, and just made me put more heart and soul into this ordinance. We suffered in this community a horrible act of animal cruelty in the last week, unspeakable. It brings us all together in our horror. So I know that some folks from the public have some things they'd like to say, Mayor, but mostly what I have to say is that I'm just tremendously grateful that I live in Santa Fe and that people care the way that they do.
I think we can open the mic. If you want to testify on any dimension of this measure, we'll ask you to line up. We'll give everybody who needs a chance to speak 2 minutes to address either all of the bill or some part of it. And after the public hearing part has completed, then we will see if the council members have questions or their own comments that they want to make before we take a vote. So if there's something you'd like to say, this is the time to testify on this measure. We need the mic. There we go.
My name is Linda Kastner, and I just want to thank Signe and Renee for doing this, because I think that we really need to empower our animal control officers to be able to have the tools, by making something against the law, to be able to respond when people complain. I know I've heard a lot about, we don't have enough officers to enforce anything, but I think that what we're looking for is for them, as I said, to just have the power to be able to do something if something is brought to their attention, of a dog being too hot, too cold. And then I would also like to say I'm glad that you're proposing to get rid of trolleys, because they're no better than fixed point. It puts the public in danger. I, as a child of 3 years old, got bitten by a dog on a trolley because I didn't know. And then it leaves the dog, of course, open to being attacked by all kinds of dogs, or God forbid it's not spayed and it's a female. It has no chance to get away or to help themselves in any way, shape, or form. And then I imagine it was difficult to put in the ordinance about allowing the animal control officers to access somebody's property to be able to help a dog. Well, last year there was a dog that was lost, and it was holed up in somebody's backyard, and the owner wanted to get it, and they wouldn't allow animal control on their property to be able to get this lost dog. So maybe that would help as well. Anyway, I hope that we get a due pass, and I thank you all for your due diligence.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Juliana Seligson. And I am very thankful. I want to reiterate that this council is considering this ordinance. I think it's marvelous that a light is being shined, and certain behaviors should be stigmatized and before they will change. And I pass a puppy, a beautiful golden retriever mix, every day for 5 years, and she's not tethered. She's in a small fenced yard, which is legal. But she doesn't have human contact. She never gets out 24/7. She sits by her fence waiting to be fed. And that is her existence. And the place she lives is full of feces. And the people who own her are elderly. And they cannot get out to take care of her. But for some reason, they don't connect that they need to get her a better life. And I just don't want to have to see that anymore. Every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Alan Edmonds. I'm the cruelty case manager at Animal Protection in New Mexico. Thanks for the introduction, Sig. And you're really welcome. And I was happy in APM and APV, Animal Protection voters. We're really happy to be involved in the process. now that it's time to vote on it, we're really excited, and we're just here to pledge our support. Certainly, in the course of my duties, I've helped other jurisdictions get their ordinances updated and changed, and this one here it's unique because this extreme weather provision will be the first in the state, so the city should really be proud of itself for considering that. And I just want to also say that in other jurisdictions where the tethering section has already been in place, tethering as a means of confinement being restricted and a violation, there really hasn't been any problem in enforcement. Both Bernalillo County, that was 2013, and Santa Fe County, 2015, had that provision in their new ordinances. And and it sounds like you're going to have the education and the transitional period. So that's really great, and I think the city's not going to have a problem getting the folks to comply, because this is a city of animal lovers. So thanks again, and we're really happy to be part of this process.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jenny Rabinowitz, and there's so many aspects of this bill that we could talk about, but I just wanted to say that when we are kinder to animals, we make a kinder world for ourselves. And it also sends a message, once hopefully this bill is passed, that life is not cheap and that it matters. And then I also just want to say, as a social worker, I have had, over the 8 years or so that I've been doing this, I've been learning about people finding animals dead in their yards, at their doorsteps, pug puppies, pit bulls, mostly short-haired animals. And I think there's been a kind of feeling of feudalism about it, and that doesn't make for a healthy community. So I just want to thank you very much for considering this bill, and thank you, SIG.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors and Mayor Weber. My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm the Chief Legislative Officer for Animal Protection Voters and Animal Protection of New Mexico. And on behalf of our more than 1,400 Santa Fe supporters, and as a Santa Fean myself, I urge you to support these ordinance changes. In particular, the dog chaining changes are really important. There are, of course, cruelty implications as well as public health and safety implications. If anyone has any questions about that and would like to check it out before voting, you can read a report that was published by the New Mexico Department of Public Safety and Animal Protection of New Mexico. I have extra copies if you would like. And I also want to talk about what we've done to step up and partner with communities who are making these changes. And so, as you know, not too long ago, Santa Fe County made some upgrades to their ordinances, including prohibiting dog chaining. And so since 2016, we've provided the National Animal Care and Control Association's 40-hour academy training scholarships to several Santa Fe County humane law enforcement officers. We've worked closely with the county animal control officers to identify potential fencing sites within the communities for neighbors who want to get their dogs off chains, but maybe they just can't navigate the complicated permitting process, or they just simply can't afford it. Through our pilot fencing project so far, we've been able to construct 8 secure fences, helping 18 dogs to now live their lives untethered and be able to run and play and have shade and enjoy companionship with their people. And we also expanded the services of APNM Straw Fund, providing free straw to the Santa Fe County Animal Services, so that can be distributed to people whose animals do live outside in the winter months to help keep them warm. We've also partnered to provide dog houses. So I'll just end with saying that we are currently actively seeking additional funds so that we can continue doing and amplifying that work here in the city as well.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Karen Kane, and I run an organization in town, Street Homeless Animal Project. We work with homeless folks and their companion animals out on the street for 21 years. But we've also signed up a hugely important campaign, and the reason I'm up here right now is the temperature thing. We have a campaign that we're working on and have been for 3 years, and it's Dogs Die in Hot Cars. If you love them, leave them at home. So amazing, wonderful what y'all are doing. Thank you, thank you. It's imperative for the lives of these incredible beings. And I want to say thank you to the police. We've had events and all have showed. We have a veterinarian on our board. We have other vets involved, and I know other organizations do that support, and just this is amazing and wonderful. But I just wanted to get up and say that we're working very hard on this. I know that there will be issues brought to you guys, to y'all regarding this. And again, thank you so much. We're working with police, we're working with paramedics, fire, vets, and our slogan is, we have a billboard on the way up to Albuquerque, and it's Dogs Die in Hot Cars. If you love them, leave them at home. Not for a minute, not for a second. And so please, thank you. And let's make some changes. We're working on a Good Samaritan law so that people can, if necessary, to save a life of any animal, human or non-human, that we can break that window to save this life. And we'll be talking more about this in the coming summers coming up. And also, it is against the law. There is up to a $500 fine. I know y'all know that, or up to 90 days in jail. But I'm so grateful for all the support on this and everything that you are doing, every front, to protect and to save non-human animals. Thank you.
Thank you.
And here's this.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excuse me. Can you restart the window, please? Stephanie Beninato. I am in support of the ordinance. I think it's good that you are more specific about what some of these violations are. I do have some questions. For example, you talk about that the animal control officer has to witness it, or there's documentation, and there's also the person has to actually fill out a complaint. You just can't call in and think animal control is going to do something. I think enforcement, of course, is a big problem. And again, this was years ago, but I had a neighbor who boasted 24/7 for 10 years. He left 2 German Shepherds out all the time. So, and nobody ever could hear them. Animal control could never hear them. And so enforcement's going to be a problem. Going into the property, you need the owner's permission or the authority. I'm not really sure what authority that means, because if the owner's actually intentionally leaving the dog out, I doubt they're going to give you permission to go into their property. So I think that needs to be clarified, or at least that people need to be aware that the animal control is not just going to go on the property automatically because they get a complaint. They have to get the owner to say yes. I also, again, I think it's easier to be an administrative type of action, but I think, again, even if animal control took the documentation that you took, and I don't think they're just going to hopefully just be total pushovers, but, that they would accept it. But if it goes to appeal, then that person is going to have to come in and say, I made the documentation, here's how I made it. So if people think that just by having documentation they're never going to confront the neighbor, if the neighbor appeals, they'll be confronting the neighbor. So I think some of that just needs a little clarification. Again, I do appreciate the effort in having this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Charlotte Domandi. I live on Velarde Street here in Santa Fe, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband, and a couple of my neighbors who weren't able to come tonight. I'm speaking in favor of the ordinance, And I thank you, Councilor Lindell, and I thank all of you, Councilors and Mayor Weber, for considering this. I was thinking about the term domesticated animals, and of course, domestic means of the home. These are animals that are of a very sensitive emotional nature. They are an awful lot like us, and I think it's probably clear to anybody that it's not good to chain sentient beings, especially sentient beings who are so much like ourselves. I also wanted to bring up the point, I'm not sure if others have done so already, but people who perform acts of cruelty to animals often go on to become domestic abusers or violence of other kinds. And there are a lot of domestic violence cases where, if you look back at that person's history, it started with abuse of animals. So I think that when we look at an ordinance like this, we're looking at a bigger picture than just the abuse of animals, where you are speaking as a governing body against violence against human beings as well. I also just want to say how proud I am to be a Santa Fean in a city that provides the kind of leadership by considering an ordinance of this kind, because this is an ordinance that then other cities and other towns and municipalities can follow suit and say, you know, they did it. How did they do it? How did it go? What are some of the bumps we can iron out if there are bumps? But you know what? We did it, and other people will follow suit. Other governing bodies will follow suit. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Brooke Doman, and I'll probably be the one naysayer. I'll start off saying I am a dog lover, and I've had dogs all my life. I think what this bill lacks is it paints a broad stroke. It doesn't take into account a dog's breed, size, what kind of coat it has. Mostly I have dogs that are large dogs, double coated. My dog loves 32 degrees and below. She likes to sit in the snow. So I actually looked up online. There's the Tufts Animal Care and Condition Skills for assessing weather and environmental safety. And so it's very simple. It has degrees, starts off with 3, and then you add or subtract based on body size. Is it a northern dog with double coat? Does a dog have shelter? And takes away if the dog's older or smaller. And by this, you can see that not all dogs fit into one category. And if you use something simple like this, it's not complicated. It would allow for these different characteristics of dogs. So that's what I wanted to say on that matter. And also I wanted to address the people that aren't in the room, the homeless people. How is this going to affect them? You're going to be taking away companions. And I think people who love their pets will always take care of them, regardless. I think most people will go without eating before they don't let their pet eat. Lastly, I wanted to make a comment on the section 5-7.6 animal nuisances. It says, anyone walking an animal in a public area shall have in his or her possession a sanitary and disposable means of removing the animal feces, which must be placed in a refuse container for sanitary removal. Persons walking in public shall be able to present such means upon request of animal services. So this essentially, somebody can harass you while you're walking your dog and tell you have to be able to present a doggy bag, something to pick it up, which, it's good to be able to have to clean up after your pet, but you shouldn't be harassed for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appropriate, but I had an incident with some neighbor's dog. Oh, I'm sorry, Martin Witt. And just finding out about this ordinance today, I was not aware of it. I wanted to find out if it's relevant. Instead of, if you have a neighbor who's abusing their dogs in some way and keeping them outside for, a week straight and barking and waking the neighbors and we lose sleep, that sort of thing, can we take a picture, instead of confronting the neighbor, could we take a picture of the property, the dogs in the back of the house? This then could be transferred, I don't know how you would do this, but that way you would maintain your anonymity and you would not have a confrontation with the owners because some of them can get a little bit unruly, and it has created some uncomfortable situations. Very quickly, I was at a friend's house. These dogs are outside, and he was losing sleep. Well, it was disturbing me that night, so I called I don't know if it's animal shelter, and I just wanted to report it, but I did not want to use my name. They said, you have to use your name. I said, well, this could cause a situation where, because it's on file from what I understand, so that neighbor could find out that I, in fact, made the phone call and maybe confront me in an unfavorable situation. So I was just wondering if it's possible with algorithms, some sort of program where you can take a picture, send it in anonymity, and then anonymous, if you will, and then the situation can be taken care of that way.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's appropriate, but I just thought I'd share.
The public hearing, it's very appropriate. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard from the public at this time? If not, we'll close that part and take Councilor Lindell, you wanted to make a couple follow-ups, and then we'll have either questions or comments from the council going forward.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to be clear that from the very beginning on this, that Councilor Vigil-Koppler, Councilor Beta, and Councilor Villarreal helped with this ordinance, and from the very beginning helped me with it, and gave me the support to push through some kind of tricky little items with it, and I appreciate that very, very much. Also want to say that the purpose of this is in no way, shape, or form to be punitive to loving dog owners. It's to better the lives of dogs, and part of what we have to do sometimes is to write the ordinances and the laws to protect the most vulnerable. That doesn't mean that, isn't tight? Whoa.
Social distancing.
That doesn't mean that our animal control officers and our police are not well trained and have the ability to use judgment and their determination on the proper enforcement of these ordinances. I appreciate the woman that came to the microphone and said you were probably going to be the only person that disagreed with this. Well, I didn't find what you said particularly disagreeable. It was some insight and well-taken points, and I think that what we have to do is to trust our enforcement men and women to be well-trained, to be compassionate, and to evaluate each situation as they come to it. And I have that trust in them, and I know that going forward with, we'll be doing some education, we'll be trying to help some people come into compliance, but I do appreciate the points that you brought forward. So that's what I have, Mayor. Let's hear if someone else has.
Very good. Let's
thank you.
Open the conversation to council members. Councilor Garcia.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councilor Lindell and the rest of the councilor crew that brought this forth. We recently got a four-legged friend to our family, and I'm quickly learning how loving and how much joy they bring to your life. So I, as a responsible dog owner, want to ensure that I stay in compliance with these proposed amendments to this ordinance should they pass. So I do have a couple questions that I'd like to get some clarification on. And so in regards to 5-.7, it asks, or it states, for any dog kept outside, And can I get clarification on what we mean by kept outside? It is in the ordinance, page 13, page 18 of the packet.
Let's find that. Jesse, do you have it? There's a definitional question. We're talking about animals that are kept outside.
So does that mean long-term sleeping outside? What do we mean by kept outside?
Councilor, Mayor, there's no definition for the time period of kept. The shelter should be accessible, I think, to the dog at any point that it is outside, whether it's 15 minutes or several hours. I think that's the intent of that.
Okay, so it'll be left up to the interpretation of our animal control officer what kept outside is, because our dog is what we would consider a primarily indoor dog. She doesn't go outside except for when we're outside playing or she's going to relieve herself. So I just want to make sure that should I let her out in our backyard, it's not considered a kept outside dog. She's out playing for 15 minutes. I mean, as dog owners know, they get rambunctious, especially puppies, and she wants to go outside and play.
Councilor, Mayor, I think the kept outside is reference to actually having some sort of, not just letting your dog out to play, but more of that's considered part of their living area.
Okay, so more long-term. So I would suggest that we put that language long-term in there because outside can be interpreted differently. And I'd hate for folks such as myself who lets their dog out and an animal control officer see her outside running around and then I'm in violation. Can I get an example of bedding? Just because I'm a new dog owner, and I know that, if, for example, inside her bedding is a pillow and a blanket, and that's what she loves to sleep on. And so I would automatically think that her outside doghouse, we would try to furnish it the same. You know, we want her comfortable. And so just so the general public could understand what would be the appropriate bedding for her.
Councilor Lindell.
I can answer that for you, Counselor. Outside bedding would not be blankets or any kind of dog beds that would absorb any kind of moisture. It's not even hay, it's straw. Straw is much more moisture-proof than hay, and blankets, towels, pillows, that kind of thing, once they get wet, they maintain the moisture. In the winter, they freeze. It makes for a frozen platform for a dog to be on. In the summer, they can mold. So for exterior dog beds, the recommended substance is straw. And as was mentioned from animal protection voters, and also at the shelter, they have a fund for purchasing and distributing straw for free.
Great. That's good to know because, like I said, I'm a new dog owner, and I want to make sure that this dog has the best life possible.
Call me anytime.
I will, trust me. So I guess my next questions go on to the next section, 5-5-8, the extreme weather portion. And I as well do have the concerns of the breeds of animals, and after hearing your comments and having our animal control team be well trained, I just want to ensure that we're not being punitive in the sense where folks that do own breeds that are extreme weather animals, that they don't get in trouble for allowing their dogs to play outside. I found out taking my dog out to relieve herself, and she's not an extreme weather animal, would I consider that. When I took her out, it just happened to be one day after a major snowstorm, and she found out she loves snow. I mean, she was running and jumping through it, so immediately my rationale was, okay, well, when it snows, we're going to take her out and play in the snow. So my question is, am I going to be in violation should we have a major snowstorm and I take her outside to play in the snow with me and the kiddos?
Taking your dog out to play in the snow is a lot different than leaving your dog out all night long when it's snowing. And, we have certain breeds that at 32 degrees, they're perfectly comfortable. We don't have dogs that find it particularly comfortable to be out all night in 10-degree or 0-degree weather that has a stiff wind. So what you're asking about is, that's not a violation. You're outside playing with your dog. You're having a great time. Yeah, a lot of dogs love that. They don't want to be out in it for hours on end.
Right. No, that's good to hear, because I think that would upset her if she couldn't go run around and have fun with us while we're playing in the snow. I did notice that the same section didn't reference cats, and it kind of pertains solely to dogs. Are we going to look at cats? I mean, they're a domestic animal. I know cats are a bit different in the sense, in regards to some animal people have outdoor cats that are outdoors majority of the time, and so are we solely going to be saying we're only going to protect dogs, or are we going to also look at protecting folks' cats as well?
Councilor Mayor, the information in extreme weather is limited specifically to dogs. So at this point, it's just dogs.
Okay. I think that's something we should look at in the sense people love their cats just as much as they love their dogs. And we want to ensure that if we're going to be protecting our animals, we're protecting all of our animals. And I don't... You would have some cat lovers that would say, don't give preferential treatment to dogs. Solely protect the cats as well. So I think that's something we should look at and review. And then the last question I have is, and maybe this is more so in regards to the fiscal impact report. How did we come at $3,600 a year? Because I do see us having more time be spent on enforcement, which in turn might have us have to hire more enforcement. So how did we arrive at the $3,600 a year? Because if we have the ordinance, we want to ensure that we're also enforcing it. We just don't want to say we want to protect them. We want to ensure that we're walking the walk as well.
Councilor Mayor, on page 3 of the fiscal impact report, at the top is the sort of the description of where that amount came from. There are some aspects in the professional animal care businesses that are not currently, there's no license fee currently associated with them, so we're adding that in, so there's positive revenue on that side. Depending on how it's calculated, because they have been charged $250, which is the license fee for other businesses, and those pet sitting, dog walking, those have been lumped in with those other businesses, even though maybe they shouldn't have been. We're reducing that, we're setting that fee at $100. So if you want to count that revenue, then that's a loss of revenue, $150 for a business. The animals disturbing the peace would be a civil infraction as opposed to being sent to municipal court, starting with a fine of $25. There have been approximately 18 referrals to municipal courts over the last few years, so that would result in about $450 per year in additional fines. And all the other fees and fines are as they are currently set, so that's where that number comes from.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you, Councilor Lindell and Obeta and Vigil Koppler and Villarreal for this. As I mentioned, as a new dog owner, we love our pup. We want to make sure she's safe. We also want to see other pups and animals safe. So thank you for making lives better for our pets in Santa Fe.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Lindell. I was so happy when you first told me you were going to sponsor this because I truly love animals, and when you see an animal in distress, you kind of just want to grab them all and take them home and protect them, but we can't do that. So this is, I think, a better resolution to all of us who want to help make our city better. I will also say that I think advertising these changes to the public is really, really going to be important. And this morning, KOAT TV did a all morning long series of stuff on what we're doing here tonight. And as someone who testified tonight said, I do really believe that if this is implemented, which I am feeling that's the way it's going to go, I think we are going to be a kinder city. And it speaks to all of our people who live here and who love our pets. But this is really maybe for those who don't give as much attention to pets, their animals, dogs for sure, as they should. And I was thinking about Councilor Garcia's questions, and I know I've heard if you're cold, they're cold. And I think that's a good standard. So I would invite you to take your pet out to play and stay out there for hours and hours. And if you get cold, then bring your pet inside. And so that's a good measure. So I don't think that anybody can fail with that. If you're cold, they're cold. So I don't think this needs to be as complicated as it maybe can be. And that also applies to, I know I've heard about breeds maybe don't get cold. Well, how do we know? How do we know? And I think if you're cold, they're cold is a good standard. So with regard to advertising, I read in here that this is, if it's approved, will go into effect within 120 days. So during that time, I suppose we are going to be giving notice to the public about this. And one thing that we haven't mentioned in much, although, Counselor, you did in your opening statement, there are some very good people who have donated to this cause to help with the bedding and maybe the extra cost of fencing and such. So getting that word out, I think, is important. Maybe that will help get more donations. And I understand that this fund, which is about $6,000 right now, will be administered by the Santa Fe Humane Society or the animal shelter.
Right, can I
Sure.
pitch one thing in there? It's we got an initial 5,000 matching donation. We're up over 6,000, so we still got some more room for matching monies. If any folks want to donate or you have some friends that want to, but thanks for bringing that up. It was a matching donation.
Okay, that's fabulous. That's really fabulous. To the gentleman who mentioned perhaps we could take photos, maybe we should see how it works now, but I'm not opposed to perhaps considering something like that in the future if this doesn't get us anywhere because people want anonymity. So if we take a look at how it works, if I see something, boy, I'll say something, but some people may not be comfortable, and I can understand that. Perhaps if they remain anonymous and Animal Control Services gets a phone call that says this is happening, perhaps there could be a well check. I don't know if that would help or not, but something to get the animal out of distress for those who really don't want to give their name. That's something that maybe we could do anyway. I'm not sure. Then with regard to the entering the property, and I think there was a woman who said she saw this every day for 6 years or something. And there was the concern about not being able to enter the property. I'm wondering if, maybe we do this now and I just don't know, but can the municipal judge issue a court order to enter the property or a warrant? And that, I know district judges, when they get calls at night and they issue warrants on the spot for things that are important. So I think that's something we could consider as in serious violations, or who's to be the judge on that. But if a judge issues a court order, I think that would be something that would resolve that, at least in the time being. So those are my comments, and I again want to thank you, Councillor Lindell, for all of your work on this. Very much appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Villarreal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to thank everyone that was involved with this process. I wasn't too much involved because I felt like it was in good hands with Councilwoman Lindell. She knows a lot about this topic. We have a lot of partners in the community to be able to get the right language in, and there's a considerable amount of changes, in my opinion, that will be very positive for our community. And I think it does set a positive precedent and an example of good policy that other jurisdictions can model. So I'm hoping that that's where we'll be leading. I was also concerned about cats because I'm a cat lover, and unfortunately I don't have any pets because we are too busy up here, and I don't feel like I can dedicate enough time to pets. So I don't have any right now. But I guess I was thinking if there was a way to fold in, or maybe there's folks from APV that have any suggestions as to how or why cats aren't included in some of the legislation that you've worked on, whether it's this one or at the state level. If you want to, I just want to hear from you just a little bit about that. Thank you.
Question, and yeah, it depends on in whatever, jurisdiction, what ordinance or what in the state statute, what you're talking about. The definition in the state statute is animal. So cruelty or neglect to an animal that's the state statute. You could have in Santa Fe, and you may already have this, that cats cannot run at large, just like dogs can't run at large. It's just about the definition again. So with the outdoors provision, if you had a secure yard that the cat couldn't get out of, you could change the wording to animal, and then you would have to have a shelter for your cat.
Right. Yeah, I guess
that's the way it is now, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it really got to that point. And I think we can always consider something in the future. I'm okay with starting at this point because, to me, to have something so much better that we have now is a positive thing. So thank you for that info. And we've also gotten complaints of just how neighbors, like my colleague was talking about, how neighbors don't want to get involved because there's some volatile situations that they don't want to have to confront. I have a situation in my own neighborhood where we've had to call about dog neglect, and it's been a constant with my partner about, well, who's going to call and whose name is going to be on it, and are we going to have to go to court with this person that it may not be a very amicable situation if we had to go to court about it. So I guess I'm still of the mindset that we still need to improve that piece about how we can prevent people from having to confront their neighbor in court. And I know there was a last-minute change by the police instead of citation to have criminal, and I'm wondering if we could have someone talk a little bit about why you made that change from PD. If there's
Jesse,
anybody,
did you have some
or
insight
maybe
on
Jesse
that?
has some info.
This has to do with the neglect penalty.
Councilor Mayor, in discussions with Animal Services, their preference was that violations of neglect be a criminal conviction, just because there could be pretty severe cases of neglect, and the civil citation might just be a slap on the hand.
So I understand that. I guess I'm just wondering how a neighbor can be separated from that process so they don't have to go to court. And it sounds like we still have to have that process, correct?
As far as I know, that's how the bill's written.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Villarreal. So neglect under the bill without the Weber amendment would be civil citation, so you wouldn't be going to court, or a person would not be going to court. They would be going to hearing officer. The bill without that amendment, or with, either way, it would be a complainant or a animal services officer with firsthand knowledge would have to provide that evidence. If it is a criminal violation, you have to have the right to confront your accuser in any sort of criminal case. That's a constitutional requirement. In a civil matter, you would still need to be able to prove the case, so you'd need someone to say that they witnessed it, or there would have to be some other type of evidence. And there is the opportunity to provide documentation. And I believe that's under the existing language too. All complainants shall be willing to testify and/or provide documentation regarding the complaint. So if there were some other documentation that could be provided, in a court you'd need to authenticate that type of evidence. So typically you need someone who can say, this is a true and accurate photo, video, whatever it is, of the incident. In a civil case, the rules of evidence are lessened, so that burden is lessened as well. However, you still need at least to show that it is what likely what happened, right? So you still need to show it's more than just maybe this happened. So you probably need someone to describe that incident. Otherwise, on an appeal, the person who is being accused probably will win their appeal because there won't be evidence against them.
I think the prior part of your question then goes to the why of this, and it really is, and I think the conversations that Jesse had and that I had suggested that something as serious as neglect deserved a much more serious penalty, and that we wanted to stiffen the penalty against somebody who actually visited neglect on their pet.
Okay. I agree with that aspect. I'm just having this hard time trying to figure out how to remove a neighbor so that there's not retribution, which I've heard in some cases. Jesse, did you want to elaborate?
Yeah, Councilor Mayor. Maybe I'm misreading this, but the part where it says all complainants shall be willing to testify and or provide documentation is actually specifically for animals disturbing the peace, so the barking dogs. In the nuisance section, the neglect section, there's not that same provision. So I think you can call animal services, report it, and they'll come out and write that citation, be it civil or criminal.
That was helpful. I think that was what I needed to hear. And I think because we're just implementing this, I would like to add a one-year review so we can see how we're doing and check in with our department, with animal control, and see what's working, what needs to be adjusted if needed. So if we could add that in as an amendment as well. And I think that's it. There was only one weird technical question that I don't think we ever addressed because it came in an email that was supposed to be directed to Jesse, and I don't think it ever got there. It was on page 14. It's a definition issue. It doesn't have really anything to do with the changes that we made. It's the class of reptilia, and I want to just tell you that there was some change that someone sent us. How do we want to address that?
Councilor Mayor, we're doing that in a separate bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments at this time? I want to add one thanks to you and to the sponsors of the measure. I think it's a tremendous effort and a lot of work went into it. I also think as we take the time that has been allocated in the bill to put it into effect, I think we're going to be asking, I will be asking the city manager to work with our management team to develop an implementation plan. And I think that'll give us a lot of clarity about where there needs to be either more clarification or maybe some tweaks going forward. And so I think this really is the right measure for right now. But if you want to talk about either cats or animals, different definitional questions, I think the implementation plan will highlight that and then also be part of folding in the education process going forward. So I think I think that kind of careful management implementation will make this work very smoothly. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Mayor. Clerk Vigil, what ordinance number is this?
2020-6.
2020-6. I would propose that we pass ordinance 2020-6, including Amendment B, proposed by Councilor Lindell, amendments proposed by Mayor Weber and Councilor Lindell, and amendment from Councilor Villarreal requesting a one-year review.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second.
Councilor Villar-Coppler? Yes. Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Pita?
Yes.
Councilor Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilor Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
Yes.
Woof.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor O'Meara Worth?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Very good. Actually, we do frown on applause because then you sometimes get booing, but you can, yeah, you can wave your fingers in the air if you wish to. That brings us to item H2 on our hearings, and Director Brown, welcome.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Just a slight preamble to the discussion. In our effort to bring new tech, automation, online payments, clean data, and engagement for services, we're taking some steps to bring a new platform to the city with InterGov. As of this date, we have processed 3,625 renewals out of a possible 4,889 on file.
Could you just wait 1 second? It's a little noisy in here, and I would like to get those statistics clearly into the record. Okay, I think it's okay.
Okay.
So back up 1 second. So you've
Back up.
processed.
So yeah, it's a bit of a bumpy ride, but we have processed 3,625 business license renewals out of a possible 489 on file. And also we've processed 814 new business licenses, which is a great sign for our economic vitality. This is a large number since late December. In the final weeks of this renewal period that we have that ends on March 15th, we've added a greeter. We have 4 temps working about 10 hours a day. We have a co-located cashier. We have validated parking for 1 hour. And we have a Go Pass Go system where if the line is long, you can actually sign up, and one of our temps will take your information and send you a receipt so that you could pay by mail while they process your information based upon any renewal issues you have. And one bonus is that we've added coffee and donuts, which has been a big win for everyone. And by July of this year, 2020, we will have fully automated an online system with InterGov, and you'll be able to renew and pay online now that Wells Fargo has lifted the waiver to allow us to use BridgePay for online payments. The rolling law that you are considering this evening will provide more convenience, allow folks to renew their license based upon issuance instead of a renewal date of a certain March 15th right now. And then there's an amendment that's been added, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think Councilor Villar-Coppler is also speaking of it, that allows up to 90 days for us to extend the renewal period. In light of this coronavirus issue, we may have people who will not want to come to City Hall, and this will allow them to actually come to our microsite that we've opened up that they can renew licenses. But we're very close to our final number. But this microsite will allow it, and the amendment will give them time to do it so that we don't penalize them beyond March 15th. So the big thing is that there's no fiscal impact to this rolling bill law, so we're excited about adding it into our ordinance. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a public hearing, so if there's anyone who wishes to speak for or against this measure for 2 minutes, this is the time to do so.
Stephanie Beninotto. I wouldn't say I oppose a ruling on, certifications of licenses, but I have to say that I've never had a problem even coming in towards the end where there were huge long lines. And the idea that there were sort of distresses me, especially since we've been told over and over in the past 2 years that these systems are going to be implemented, and now they're just being implemented. And great, I'm glad they're finally implemented, but I hope they continue to work because I really think IT is your biggest Achilles heel, and it is also billed always as the savior. And again, you have IT making problems with payments. It wasn't just the first time, it was at least I think the third time where either payments didn't get made or too many got made, and no one seems to know what the problem is. And so again, it's just a comment really on IT and the reliance and the praising of this when every system that's been promised has taken much, much longer and is problematic in its actual operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others who wish to speak to this measure? Are there questions from the governing body? Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Thank you, Mayor. We discussed this today in Economic Development Committee, and some of the real-life examples of what went on, and one of them was mine. And so I came twice to renew my license. The first time the hallway was just packed with people, and packed. They were not happy campers. I didn't see donuts. I didn't see anything like that. I didn't see a greeter, but there were very many unhappy people. On the other hand, the next time I came, there was only 3. Now, I'm glad that this is on here because the deadline, I believe, really needs to be extended because there are some issues with just getting here, number one. The bottleneck I did see, though, and we discussed it at committee today, is that there's only one cashier. And I know that there was a temporary added, but that temporary cashier was only there to cover for the lunch hour because the cashier's office closes at noon. And so during this particular, I would say it's something that won't last long, but I would ask that the city manager consider rotating the cashier to stay open during the noon hour and to continue having the temporary cashier to be either cashiering or printing the licenses because that took some time too. And most people think Friday's the deadline, and we're gonna have, I'm sure, crowds because there's more than 1,000 people left to license. If this continues, if this gets approved and it's extended, I believe people are genuinely sometimes procrastinators, and they'll show up in droves at the last minute too. So in planning for customer service, I would ask that the city manager consider working something out where we have dual cashiers, and perhaps when the temporary cashier is not cashiering, they could be printing up these licenses. Because it really is like we're in the Stone Age when you do this, and that's the way I felt. I understand it's only temporary, but I think it's a nice, people would probably appreciate that more than donuts. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilor Villarreal.
I just had a quick question.
Before we do that, Rich, did you want to say anything about the situation?
Yes, Councilor and Mayor, the temporary cashier is supposed to be there all day, but their main role is to make sure they fill in for the lunchtime. But we will take you under advisement about talking to finance about seeing if we can shift the cashiers that are at the window over lunch because they both do leave at noon.
Thank you. Councilor Villarreal.
I just had a quick question. I thought somebody could do this by mail. Am I wrong about that? That they get notification and there's a way to renew your license via mail?
Yes, Councilor Mayor, we have created a microsite just in the last couple of weeks, about 3 weeks now, where the notifications have been sent out so they can put their information in the microsite. We don't have clean data, so we have to get clean data in this microsite. Once it comes to us, the temps then process their application to renew and then send them a receipt in the mail, and then they can send their payment from that standpoint. But it's just happened in the last couple of weeks where we rid of the microsite.
I thought we always had that option, though.
We did, but it was an old system from 1991, so we're going to 2020 now.
Right.
So, but the new system will have that all automated.
Thank you.
Other questions? Your motion?
Move to approve. As amended.
As
amended.
Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Beta?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilor Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor O'Mara Worth?
Yes.
Councilor Hill Coppler?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate your work to demonstrate responsiveness to folks when the crowd is, when the hall is crowded, and to alleviate that crush. So, thank you. That brings us to item H3, the hearing of an ordinance amending the Land Development Code. Eli, is this something you want to speak to? Not sure that's on. Now you got it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I believe everyone's seen this through committee, so I'll stand for questions if anyone has any questions.
Let's see if there's anyone who wishes from the public to speak to this matter. Apparently not. So are there questions for Eli about this measure? Councilor Abeyta, did you want to say something on this?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Councilor Beta?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilor Garcia? Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor O'Mara Worth?
Yes.
Hill Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, and Jesse left? Jesse, did you leave? No, you just ducked around the corner. This has to do with some language cleanup. You want to give us a quick overview?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, as all of you know, we adopted the Local Election Act from the state I think it was about a year ago. So this is just a clarification in our charter that will now reference the Local Election Act instead of the Municipal Election Code, I think it's called. So, and the Local Election Act does allow us to amend the charter in this regard if it's related to that specifically.
Okay, thank you. Are there anyone who wishes to be heard on this matter from the public as a public hearing? No? Are there questions from the governing body for Jesse? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez? Councilor Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor O'Mara Worth?
Yes.
Councilor Hill Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Beta?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
Okay. We have some matters to go back to. Let's see. We have some appointments to consider. Why don't we? I know this is kind of out of order, or out of regular order, but I think we can do this. I have a series of appointments I'd like to bring to a vote. I'd like to make an appointment to the Historic Districts Review Board of John C. Bienvenu, to the Bicycle and Trails Advisory Committee of Yolanda Eisenstein, and to the Immigration Committee of Shelley Cohen and Holly Calzadeas Andujo.
Second.
Okay. Let's see. We get to do that by voice vote, right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we can go back to matters from the city clerk, the all-important item that we've skipped.
I have none. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Matters from the governing body. Let's start with this end of the dais. Something from the governing body. Councilor Cassett Sanchez.
I've got nothing except wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Councilor Romero Worth.
I'm all good, thanks.
All right.
I'm well, thank you.
Anybody, no birthdays? Next meeting we'll have a slew of birthdays. Councilor Lindell.
I don't have anything, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, I will work.
I do want to sign on as a co-sponsor with Councilor Beta.
And you're listed as well, as a co-sponsor. Councilor Villarreal, your turn. Yes, you.
Nothing
At the
tonight.
moment. All right.
Nope, thank you.
Councilor Abeda.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm introducing a resolution accepting a grant from the National Fitness Campaign for the installation of outdoor fitness courts at 5 City of Santa Fe parks. I'd also like to congratulate Capitol High on their win earlier today and wish the Demons good luck. They're about to tip off at the pit against Cleveland tonight.
I knew you would
win.
Yeah.
They're going to play Capitol.
I knew this was going to be weekend update for sports from your desk. Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler.
Yes, thank you. I would also like to congratulate Capitol High and wish the Demons good luck tonight. And I would like to, well, they're all gone now, but to thank the fire department and police department. We were able to organize a good send-off for both teams. So they I don't know if you saw this last year, but they go to the schools, all the fanfare, fire department trucks and police and sirens going, and they escort the team all the way out I-25 to La Cienega exit. And so they were very gracious about doing this, and they did it last year, although they only did it for the Demons last year. So I think Capitol caught on. But anyway, that was very nice of them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Equal treatment.
Right.
Councilor Garcia.
I'll take one out of Councilor Rivera's book and give a birthday shout out. We've got my mother's birthday on Saturday. So big birthday wishes to her. And as well, just be safe out there. It seems like that coronavirus is going around. They just canceled the NBA season. It's really impacting everything now. So please be safe out there, everybody.
Thank you. If you'll bear with me, I have a couple things I would like to bring to everybody's attention. Number one, some good news. As the governor's veto pen has been wielded, I got an update from Mark Durand that while the governor did veto the road package and $100 million from the capital outlay bill, our money for the teen center and for the electric vehicle purchases has survived. So we are really grateful for that, and to the legislature and to the governor and to Mark's good work. We'll get a report from him soon to bring us a more full series of comments about the legislative session, but I think at least I know I was holding my breath today to see what the governor would cut and what the governor would keep, because we all know that the oil and gas situation has changed precariously, and the good news is that the teen center and the electric vehicle money have survived. On the coronavirus situation, as you can imagine, this has been occupying a tremendous amount of my time and our most deeply affected department heads. Been meeting regularly, daily, with a task force of department heads who are most significantly affected, including community services, finance, other public-facing and public-engaging departments, as well as our HR department, because it has a significant effect on our own workforce. This morning was on a call that the White House organized, roughly at the same time the governor's press conference was going forward. I think the basic facts continue to be the basic facts, and saying wash your hands is not a gratuitous comment. Prevention is the most significant thing we can all practice. For people who in city government are employees who feel sick, we're telling them to stay home. We want them to get well, and we also don't want them to spread any kind of a potential disease. The Department of Health website is a great place to go for information. If you feel sick, call the hotline and get an over-the-phone diagnosis. Obviously, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer. Some things that we announced today, we're instructing, as I said, city employees who are sick to stay home. We're looking at what kinds of health benefits or health coverages we've got for people, make sure they can afford to stay home. The Alert Santa Fe emergency website and app is something everybody should be on. It's just go to santafenm.gov/alert Santa Fe and sign up for the emergency alert, so you will get instantaneous news flashes from Kyle Mason and others who are keeping track of this. We are suspending, the city manager is suspending non-essential employee business-related travel outside of New Mexico and the United States. That's something that is in keeping with what the governor did and what the school district has already done. We are adding 120 hand sanitization stations that the city manager and our finance department have contracted for, so there will be more places for people to get hand sanitizer in city buildings. We have a flu protocol in effect at Transit Convention Center and Recreation Center buildings. And this notion of social distancing, as odd as it sounds and sometimes feels, is actually a really good protective measure. I see you've got your hand sanitizer, you're armed and considered ready. That's a good thing. I will continue to meet with our department heads, and with, today I was with the head of Christus St. Vincent, with the school district, with the county. We are all gathered together. We'll continue to have those meetings as new decisions roll out and as we respond to additional decisions at the federal level, at the state level. I'll make sure everybody hears what we're doing in real time. If you have suggestions, please call me. We're trying to compile a rolling list of pending decisions that need to be made about city programs, partnerships, conferences, gatherings, as well as letting people know when other jurisdictions make decisions. St. John's announced they were extending their spring break for their students, and we're waiting to see what other major city organizations do. We want to be a good partner. We essentially want to follow the lead of the Department of Health, which has the governor's standard of behavior going forward. That concludes my quick update. Thank you for letting me go through that. I appreciate it. And we are...
Mayor, excuse me.
Oh, we're not adjourned.
You want to introduce your legislation?
Geez, I spaced out my wonderful resolutions. I have two things I love the smell of that hand sanitizer. Two resolutions I'm introducing. One is approving the acceptance of a grant from the state of New Mexico to construct a greenhouse in Santa Fe County, to provide a venue for horticulture therapy for individuals with developmental disability, and directing staff to seek additional funding for the site, and a resolution approving an extension for the display of banners along Guadalupe Street between Paseo de Peralta and West Alameda. Those are going to get into the hopper now. Thank you. Appreciate that. And we are adjourned.